Hey everyone, this is Dave coming at you with another ZBrush tutorial, and today I wanted to talk about quick and efficient navigation in ZBrush. So effectively, how do you spin your model and move the view around, and how do you do that in a fast and efficient manner? So the first thing you'd want to do is come up to Preferences, and this I believe is on by default, but you want to make sure that right-click navigation is on, and then you want to make sure that Enable Right-Click Pop-Up is off. So right-click navigation should be orange, and then enable right-click pop-up is off. And then over here, there's a bunch of icons. There's like an XYZ and a Y. And I believe the default is XYZ. And you want to change this to Y. And that'll actually make the amount of rotation that ZBrush does a little bit more, I want to say normal. Like if you're used to a regular 3D package, this is kind of like what you'd expect in a regular 3D package. And the default XYZ is just a little bit more exotic, and it can get confusing, and you might have to fix the view more often than maybe you'd want to while you're modeling. Go ahead and move your stylus and cursor almost anywhere, and then if you want to rotate, like let's say you want to rotate this model, you actually just right click with the stylus and move, and then the model is spinning. And what's interesting about this is it actually chooses the point of rotation based on exactly where you click. So if you wanted to spin the model about the nose, for instance, you'd right click there, and as you can see, it's rotating around the tip of the nose. And that's not random, that happens to be where I was. And it's actually really, really convenient. So zoom works in a similar manner. So you've got your cursor somewhere and you're like, oh, hey, I want a closer view there. You can hold down the control key and then right click with the stylus, drag diagonally, and it will zoom in and it will zoom out. And then again, it zooms from the point where you click. So let's say you want to get a closer view of this eye, you can actually put the cursor right there and you're zooming in exactly on the eye, the piece of the geometry that you're most interested in. And then again, if you wanted to do the same thing with the nose, you'll zoom in on the nose. Again, super, super convenient. And then if you want to move the model around, you can hold down the Alt key and then right click. So hold down Alt, right click, and then as you drag around, it pans the model. So if you're using a stylus, you can certainly leave your stylus sort of like hovering above the tablet while you do these moves, and it works great. You can also, after you've started the move, you can set the stylus down, and that sometimes gives you a little bit more accuracy. So let's say let's say you're moving the model. So let's say you're shifting it back and forth. If you then set the stylus down, you can actually kind of do a more precise move. Like if I really wanted to, if I'm looking at the sort of the top of the model here and I wanted to align the hairband with the top of the screen, I could do that quite easily. And then the other thing to make a note of is the right-click navigation is in addition to the legacy style of navigation where you could click outside of the model here, and because of that, it can be a little bit funky based on how or the order I should say in which you let go of the keys in the stylus. So let's say you're zooming in, right? So you've held down Control, you're using right click with your stylus and you're zooming. If you don't make sure to sort of release the stylus before you release the Control key, it can actually get a little bit funky and it can switch from zoom to pan all of a sudden. So you'll be zooming and zooming, and then you'll sort of release both the stylus and the key you're holding down at the same time. If you sort of get those slightly out of order, suddenly the application will pan when it should have been zooming, or zoom when it should have panned, and you'll see the model jump a little bit. So you might want to actually practice sort of like, say pressing Control and then doing your zoom, and then being very mindful of like letting go of the stylus and then releasing the Control key. Another thing that's great to know is while you're, say, rotating, you can get a perfect dead-on view, like to the side or to the front, by holding down Shift. So as soon as you hold down Shift, it sort of snaps to a view. So again, I'm like rotating and rotating, and then I'll hold down Shift and it will snap to a perfect side view. And then when you let go of Shift, it frees up the rotation again. And then if I want to see the other side view, I hold down Shift again, and then there it is. So it's like a snapping system that makes up for the fact that you really only have one view. Like in a modeling package, you might have 3 orthogonal views, like top, left, right, things of that nature. Here you just rotate naturally and then hold down the Shift key. And if you want, you can turn perspective off, and then it's truly, a traditional orthogonal view. But we'll turn perspective back on, and it's probably recommended to leave perspective on while you're modeling. And you want to have a reasonable field of view. Under the draw menu, ZBrush 2020 actually has some pretty good defaults. The 50mm focal length is actually pretty natural. You might choose something a little bit more zoomy like 85 as well. Either one of these are pretty good choices. So that is pretty much that when it comes to navigation. This is a very efficient method. And then sort of the hidden reason why this is fun and exciting is that even if your model is covering the entire screen, you can still pretty easily, pan the view around. You can still pretty easily zoom in, and then you can still pretty easily pan. With the legacy style of navigation, it can just be a little bit trickier. So this is definitely one of the more efficient ways to navigate. All right, cool. So that is what I wanted to go over. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. All right, bye-bye.